Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Harika. So in this video, it's completely a series of database automation, SQL database automation using UIPath. So if you're someone who don't have any prior knowledge on database, or if you wanted to automate the database using UIPath, then this is the right series for you. Even though without any prior knowledge, or if you haven't heard of this anytime before, by end of this whole series, I assure you that you would be capable of automating the SQL database by yourself. So first of all, I will take you through the highlights of this video in particular. So let me take this notepad. So first of all, I'll just talk about what is a database and what is the need for automating this database and what are the different actions that we can perform on this SQL database and what are the activities that we can use from the studio in order to perform the automation on the database. So without any delay, let's get into the first point. So if you are not sure what is a database, so if whatever the project that we are dealing with, whatever the even the small use case or whatever it is, we need the basic thing for automation, or to perform that particular task. The basic thing to do is a data, right? Even if it can be an Excel data, or it can be from a storage bucket, or from a data service, or it can be from the SQL database. Wherever we are storing that particular data, that repository, we can call it as a database. So it's basically a repository to store the data. Okay, so right, the data is very crucial part in any kind of automation, or for any kind of project for that matter. So to store that particular data, we have to choose a repository. So in our case, it's a SQL database. Okay, so that's the first point. And let's go to the next point. What is the need for automation? So see, if we are building an automation project, okay, so if you need the data, you have to make sure that how easily you can get the data from. It's if you are taking a lot of time and putting a lot of effort in fetching the data itself, then the whole value of automation doesn't make any worth. So if you can automate that part as well, like automating the database in order to perform the actions on it, then definitely the value of your automation will also be increased. So to provide the ease in order to perform actions on the data, we need to automate the database. Okay, and by doing multiple projects and getting experience on it, you can really feel the value of automating the databases. Okay, so that's the need to, I can just simply say in one line, to ease the um, actions that we can perform on database, and also to enhance the value of the actual automation. Perfect, right? So then now let's talk about what are the different actions that we can perform on the database. This is a crucial part, right? Because we're telling that to enhance the actions that we can perform on database. So what are these actions really that we can do? So let's talk about them. So in a database, we can actually perform a lot of actions, but through automation, we can perform these actions. So what is the first one? We can insert the data. Insert the data means you can actually create a new data into the database. That's by using an insert statement. So we have different statements that we can perform on SQL. So the first one can be insert statement. And then if there is an existing data already, you can do an updation to that. So if students data is there, if the students information is there in a particular school, and then if you wanted to update the data based on the marks they secure, or class they are in, or whatever the reason, whatever the constraint it is, you can update the data by using the update statement. And let's say if you wanted to delete certain data, you can also perform the delete statement you can also perform the delete action by using the delete statement. And so let's say if there is most of the time, when you're performing on automation, most of the time there are restrictions, like you may not be able to perform all this because the repository or the database that we are using could be a production database, and also whatever the actions that you're performing would be affecting the main repository. So this chances of using the insert, update and delete would be less, but most of the time we come across the scenarios where we fetch the data from the database and we perform the actions on the data retrieved from the database. So in order to fetch the data from the database, we have a statement called select statement. So finally, we can perform all these different actions on our database using an automation. So having said that, so these are the different things, different actions that we can perform on database using automation. So in order to do all these actions, what I have to really do in the studio? First thing, right? First and the foremost question. So to do that, we have different activities. We have API activities that we have, which are already built in, and we just have to download a package and we just have to understand how to use those activities in our studio so that we can perform all these actions from the studio onto our database. So in order to use these activities over here, we have to download a package called UIPath.database.activities. Okay, so this package we have to first install into your our studio. Only then we can perform the actions. Okay, so this particular package has different set of activities. So let's go into the studio and explore more about them. But before to that, I just wanted to give you some high level understanding on this SQL database that I already have in my machine. So if you don't have the SQL Server Management Studio, I would suggest you please download and install into your machine, and you can just create the data of your own and you can just play around and explore more on the activities. So if you need any help in how to install this SQL Server Management Studio, do let me know in the comment section. I can try to provide you a link from where you can get help on downloading this. Okay. Okay, so now I am going into this is my existing database that I already have. So this is my server name that I have in my machine. And then if you see here, these are the different things. I have my databases, security server. So all these things are there, but I am mostly interested in the databases for now. So if you just expand here, I can see these are the different databases. So by default, system database and database snapshots are existing. So these are the databases that I have created in order to, perform some samples or in order to perform some demos and all. So you can also create one. So if you just see how I can create one, just go over here and create a new database. So here you can give the database name. So let's say demo database. Okay, just give the demo database name and then you will get this database, and inside the database you can see tables. So basically you have to understand one more thing clearly here is, so inside every database you can have a table where you have the data inside that particular table. Okay, so in order to refer to the data, let me go over to the demo table. Inside this particular table, if you just see here, let me execute or we can just see where we have the information. So here I have the information. So if you see here, we have a column. Excuse me. So we have a particular thing called as columns. So inside this particular table, I have 4 different columns, right? So so now I'm going to create this table, right? This is my table. This is my database and this is my table. So as of now, I haven't created any table over here, but I can do that. I can create a new table and And for that table, I have to give a column name, right? So I have to provide in a column name. So firstly, let's give the column name like, let's say student name, and then student ID, and then marks. So like that, I can give and then grade. Okay, so like this, I can create the column names inside this particular table. So these are important whenever you're referring to a particular value from a table, you have to refer it with the column name, and also the value will be fetched from that particular data table. Okay, so that's how we actually can do. So once after you create this particular table, you can just these are the data type of that particular, these are the data type of that particular column name. So student name is of char, and char means it's a character. Okay, so you can just change these to text, or you can change this to, let's say if ID is there, you can change this to numeric. So like that you can change, but whenever you're changing, make sure that you're performing, whenever you're pushing the data or pulling the data, you have the identical data type in your studio. Let's get into the studio and see what are the different firstly, let's get the package into your local machine. Let me go to manage packages. So here in official also you can find this UIPath.database.activities. Okay, so this is the package that you have to install and save it into your local machine. Okay, so once after you can install this, you can see under activities, all these activities can be appearing under your studio. Okay, so these are the main things. So firstly, in order to perform any action on the database that is there in your database, I mean in your server, then you have to establish a connection. That's the first and the foremost thing, right? So let me take a new sequence and say demo 1 or SQL automation. So what I'm going to do, the first activity that I'm going to use from the studio in order to establish the connection. So before you actually perform, so I have shown you, right? These are the different actions you can do. Before you actually do these actions, you have to establish the connection from the studio to your database. Okay, so how you can establish the connection? So first you have to see this, you have to pull this activity, which is connect. So once after you do that, if you see the properties, we have something called as connection string. You have to provide the connection string name. So let's click on configure connection. And if you go over here, you have connection wizard. So click on it. So you can see there are different data sources that are available. So you have database file, ODBC, Oracle, and the SQL server and SQL server's database file. So now in this video, I'm going to show you the SQL server because that I have handy with me right now. So you just have to click on the SQL server. So once after you do that, this shows you the description of it, and then say okay. This is the main place where you can establish the connection with the database that you have it in your machine or that you wanted to connect to. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here, just say connect. You'll find your server name. Okay, just take the server name, just paste it over here. You can paste the server name, and then if you see, you have something called log on to the server. So there are two options. You can either use Windows authentication or SQL server authentication. So as of now, I'm going for Windows authentication. So that will take my Windows credential automatically. I don't have to give in any of the credentials to establish the connection. So once that's done, you have to click on test connection. So it will show you the test results as test connection succeeded. That means there is a connection that we have established from between the server and the studio. Okay, And once after the connection is successful, here we have to select the database name. So what is the database name? If you come here, under this server, I have multiple databases, right? These are all my databases. So if you go here and connect to the database, just click on this drop down. You can see all the databases that are available in this particular server can be visible. So in this database, I wanted to connect to demo UIPath, or students database. I want to connect to this particular database, and that's it. Once after you connect to that, say okay. So this is the main part. Here, if you just observe, once after you connect to that, you should get this three information onto your connection settings screen. So first thing is data source, that shows to which server you are connected. Okay, and the second thing is initial catalog, that means the database that you have selected, which is a students database, and the security, if it's a true or false. So these three information is very crucial. This is called as connection string. Okay, so after I say okay, if you just go over here to the properties, under connection string, you can see all these different things that have come up after you have established the connect.